Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Easter Short Talk, your podcast for all things self care and movies. If this is your first time joining us, we're glad to have you. We are on episode 53. I'm Jay Watson,
And I'm Cathy Castle.
and Cathy and I are going to talk about a subject we talked about last July, but since we've got so many new viewers and new listeners, we're going to revisit the topic of debunking self care myths, and there are quite a few. So I found some new ones doing some research, so that'll be interesting. But first thing we're going to do is, as we normally do, first thing is we're going to do a check in with each other. So, what's going on with the Castle?
Well, loving the warm weather, right? Loving the warm weather. I mean, loving the warm weather. So, we're like kicking the dust off around here, and baseball started this week for Dylan, our youngest. First game on Wednesday, scrimmage. We got we're uncovering the toys, the boat, and airing that out and getting things ready to get outside. Grilling, we grilled.
What about your palm trees?
So I went out and peeked because, I have two different kinds. One's under the house, still waiting, and I have the ones that come back on their own. So I went out there today and I'm separating, kind of peeking, but I don't see anybody peeking out yet. So I will be so excited to tell the announcement of what happened here. They're here. They made it.
Didn't you say that you tried an experiment this year, something different this year?
I've tested my OCD husband, to the I'm always testing it. But he's like,
now, are you testing him for his OCD, or did you cause his OCD?
Well, that's a good question. What happened? What came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. But, so I have the ones that come back in one area, and then I have the ones that usually don't come back in another area, and then I replanted some others that come back. So I've got 3 little experiments outside, but I didn't want him to cut them down. I wanted them to fall over on their own. So like 2 weeks ago, he goes, can I just, they're dead. They've been dead. Can I just cut them? I'm like, fine. You could ask that a long time ago. Get rid of it. Get rid of the brush.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like, okay, little friends, any new guys coming out? So I'm waiting. I'm hoping this week is going to make somebody just pop out. Yeah. No more frost. Don't freeze.
Do you have a camping trip planned?
Okay. So we got the camper out of.
That would be like asking me, do you plan on drinking a cup of tea?
we got the camper dewinterized. So Marty drove it for the first time across the Bay Bridge, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm a little scared." But he did a good job. He really did a good job. Yeah. And then we got it dewinterized, and I was like, "Can we?" Now you're gonna laugh at this. I'm like, "I want to stay. Let's like stay," because there's a KOA over in Millersville, I guess, not too far from Annapolis. I was like, "Let's do it, Marty. Let's just stay. Let's do it." And he's like, So then I called my dad, and Dad said no. So I'm 57 years old, and I called my dad. He said, "Nope, you're not doing it." He's like, "Not yet." He's like, "Nope, I want to be there for when you do that in case something goes wrong." And so then when we got back to Easton and landed it in his driveway, which where we'd leave it, we wouldn't have been ready. Dad was right. Isn't Dad's always right?
Yeah.
So
he's done it a couple times, so he knows.
We're going to attempt the end of March because Dylan has a baseball game at Washington High School.
Yep.
Like
Princess Anne. Yep.
Yeah. So we might try to do have you seen Fort Whaley? It's not too far out of Ocean City. Anyway, we might try the maiden voyage. I'm excited because it's like a dollhouse for me. I'm like this here and this here, and I want to play house.
You can experiment with your little mobile home and say, "Oh, I wonder if I could do this in the house."
I know, right? So, did I say it? Oh yeah, I'm making sourdough bread. That's a whole nother thing.
Yes.
So yeah, this is like the 3rd week of sourdough. I made a whole nother batch of sourdough.
Another 9-day adventure with sourdough bread.
Yeah. That's what's going on.
God bless you for your patience. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
If I start making something, I want to eat it that day.
I'm about to bring you some sourdough.
Absolutely. I love good fresh
fresh
bread, warm. You put some melt some butter on it. Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm going to have to bring you some. How about you? What's going on?
So yeah, work's getting a little bit busier. We kind of start picking up this time of year when the weather starts to get warmer. Flooring sales goes up, so that's a good thing. Plus, people just like being out and about when it's warmer.
Wonder what
Obviously,
about warm weather? It makes people want to do their floors.
it's I don't know. It's just kind of just people just kind of
Tax money. They're getting tax
well, that's
money.
part of it. That's part of it. But just like flowers, Kathy, people just kind of. We talked about this last week. How March is like a transition month. People start to bloom when the
Yeah,
weather gets warm, and they just they
happier.
like they want to do stuff, whatever it is, and
Yeah,
some.
change.
Yep.
Kick the
Um,
dust off. I will
yeah.
tell you, at some point in my life, I want to get rid of carpet. I want to go to no carpet. So
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
be calling
That's
you in.
there's some people doing that.
I'll be calling you in, Jay.
A lot of people, Kathy, do carpet in the bedrooms and then what we call a hard surface everywhere else.
I'm just sick of carpet. I'm sick
It's
of it.
just it's easier to clean. It's
But you could
yeah,
put like a throw rug, right?
yep,
Under the
very
bed.
rug. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get choked up when it comes that time.
Yeah.
I've done half
With
your house
with my
already, so I'm a
Dreamweaver collection.
Dreamweaver makes a hard surface floor too. So yeah,
Oh, see that?
there you go. So yeah, that's that. And it's funny. I'm a Jay Shetty fan. I watch his podcast from time to time. And I
Wait,
kind of
hold up. Golf? Is
no
he,
Jay
oh,
Shetty. He's a mental health
why did I
self
think that
care
was a golf?
wellness guy.
Sorry, Jay. Sorry, Jay Shetty.
Life coach. I guess his real title is life coach, but his name is Jay Shetty. He's been on all the talk shows and done the rounds. He's kind of like the celebrities life coach. He
I
goes
didn't
on
know that
celebrities
guy. I
podcast.
thought the
Yeah.
name was golf. I just thought it was golf. My kids are watching a lot of golf. Maybe that's why.
So I of course I follow him on all social media, and he was talking today, and it was like the perfect thing. He said,
Mm.
and he was talking about like we talked about um, comfort zone and being afraid of being judged, and he's
Hmm.
like it's not we're not afraid of losing. We're afraid of losing and having people see us lose. We're not afraid of trying and failing. We're afraid of trying and failing and people seeing us try and fail. He's like, everything's about how we're going to look to others and the whole narcissistic
Yeah.
part of our personality but I just thought that was so perfect how he said it's not the losing we're afraid of, it's the losing and having people see us lose that we're afraid of.
What's the name of his podcast?
I think it's just Jay Shetty or Jay Shetty something. If you typed in Jay Shetty podcast,
Mm.
it would come up. But he's always on other celebrities podcasts. He has celebrities on his. He was just on Kelly Clarkson
Hmm.
not too long ago. I mean, he's like that. He's like that guy.
I like to watch. I like to listen to this one
It's
called.
called On Purpose with Jay Shetty.
Okay. Huh. I have to check it out. I don't know that one.
Yeah, he's really good.
I like to watch this one called, or listen to this one called 10% Happier.
Yeah.
With this guy Dan Harris. I like that he has
Mhm.
a lot of topics that I like to listen to about self care and things.
So speaking of self care, we're gonna dive back into the realm of self care myths, and we're gonna
Mhm.
debunk some self care myths. Kath and I were talking before we came on. We did this topic back in the day, back in the early days of our podcast, back last July. So it's been 8 months since we've really, kind of concentrated on this topic. We kind of have touched on it from time to time in other episodes, but I just thought it would be good to kind of rehash this topic because it kind of goes hand in hand with. I tend to think that part of the reason why there are so many self care myths is that people misunderstand what the definition of self care is. So there are things that they think that it is that it isn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, so they kind of go hand in hand. And when I was looking up, the more popular self care myths, I ran across some new ones that we have not discussed. That would be interesting to go into. And I know you've done the same with your article. So we'll go back and forth and kind of talk about what we each find. And I'll let you go first.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we might as well hit the one. We might
Well,
as well hit the one.
save the big two or three till the end.
Okay. All
But
right.
do something. Do you have any that we haven't talked about before?
All right. How this we may okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna dive in.
Yeah,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
go. And maybe this is just how it was written. Maybe we've done this before, but this one is myth. Self care is consumeristic, a feel good response. So, meaning that that it always has to be a product, something that you buy, right? Like it's canned. It's something. If you buy this, then you're gonna have good self care. It's a product to be purchased. It's maybe seen as a luxury or something. So yeah, we're very marketing. We're marketable kind of people. Our American culture. We see. I see, or at least maybe that's women. That why we have Amazon at our door every other day. But let's buy something. And I mean, I can't. I'm not gonna lie.
You buy you some tea.
I have fallen into the that. Anyway, some buy into consumeristic self care and understandably experience sometimes buyer's remorse when it does not produce long-term results. Like, don't laugh, but one time I bought this. I bought this thing off of Amazon to reduce belly fat, and it was like this thing that looked like Doctor Octopus or whatever. It like went around your belly, and then it had this ball, and then you like swung this thing around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't use that very long. Anyway, um, so it's not true. Everything doesn't have to be purchased in bulk.
Now, here's what's interesting. Well, two things. Number one, it brings a question to my mind. Is it the product that's the self care, or is it the act of going on, like, um, what's it called? What's it called? Something therapy. When you just go to shop,
Oh, retail
retail
therapy?
retail therapy. Is it the act of treating yourself, or is it the product itself?
That's a good
Maybe that's a rhetorical question.
that's a good point, right? Because
But
sometimes I change my mood if I've purchased something.
because can I tell you something? For a guy, this used to be the case for me, and I'm probably still more so this way than most guys. But Cathy, I am not exaggerating when I used to tell you that I would be at the outlets every weekend. I would be like shoes in the Under Armour outlet. Like it was not, and for the longest time, and I still can go in my closet and find clothes from Under Armour or from the outlets and still have the tag on them that I've never worn. For me, it was the act of going, and it was the event of going and shopping and having that feel good, that dopamine of that hour or two that I was up at the outlets. 95% of the time, I didn't need what I was buying. I just it was the feel good for those a little bit of
Oh,
time.
100%.
Uh,
I fall into it all the
Now
time.
I've since got, and don't get me wrong, I'll get in those moods every once in a while. But now it's like it's so easy to shop online where I'll do all that online and I'll whether it's Eddie
Amazon.
Bauer or Under Armour or whatever, and I'll like I would go to the outlets, Kathy, and I would buy a dozen things and 10 of them I didn't need. And I'll tell you a little secret too. Every time I go to Ocean City, I do my yearly Ocean City trip. I
Yeah.
always stop by the Tanger outlets,
What,
especially the
the
Under
one
Armour
in
outlet.
West Ocean City?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like because what I'll do, and I'm kind of giving away that week's episode because we're going to talk about that week. I go to the inlet and sit out in the sun first thing in the morning, grab lunch on the boardwalk, and while I'm waiting for my room to be available at the hotel, I'll drive over to the Tanger outlets and hit a couple of the stores there. It's part of my routine for that week.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm
So
not
nice.
nearly as 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 just aggressive in my buying anymore. Normally now I buy stuff because I legitimately need it. So there was a phase, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago where I was literally, I'm not exaggerating, at the outlets every weekend. Well, I'll say this: when it wasn't beach traffic, I was at the outlets
Yeah.
every weekend. Um, but you were saying how consumeristic. One of mine is kind of related to that,
Yeah.
and one of the ones I found a new one is that self care is a reward. Like we've been doing good at work, or we've been doing good at this and this and this. So I'm going to reward myself by going and get my hair done, or I'm going to reward myself with going and grabbing an ice cream cone from Dairy Queen or whatever the case is. And it's kind of similar to what you're saying because
No, I saw
those
that one too.
those consumer things are we're treating them as rewards. We've done good with X, Y, and Z, so I deserve this thing.
I saw that too, Jay.
Now they should be rewarding. Self care should be rewarding, but they're not. They should not be done as a reward. If that makes sense.
I had that one too. That self care is a reward, but I'm not against that. I mean, I think self care could be a reward. I'm literally not against that. Like somebody was talking to me about um this one of the coach I work with, the executive coach I work with. She said her coach taught her, like, if you have some really hard tasks that you want to do at work, like plan something in there. Like if I can sit down for 2 hours and really put this grant out, write this grant or whatever the task is, that there will be a reward. And rewards that she was talking to me about, to me, would be self-care. Rather, I'm gonna walk down to this coffee shop and get this really my favorite cup of tea, or I'm gonna take this nature walk if I can just sit down and do this for 2 hours. So in that case, I'm okay if you use self care as a reward, but it isn't just a reward.
Yes, like I said, it's rewarding, and
Yeah.
um, again, like me going to the movies on Friday night, it's yes, it's very rewarding, and I enjoy it. But there's a deeper intention behind it, and you shouldn't be waiting to get busy in your life to say, okay, I'm gonna do this X, Y, and Z, so then I can go to the coffee shop. You should be going to the
Right.
coffee shop consistently throughout your week or whatever.
Well, this article, or the one I'm looking at that talks about reward, also reminds us, don't and wait until we're burnt out before we
Yes,
take that, right? Because don't you want to be preventative.
yes, be consistent.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what,
Yeah.
what's your next one?
All right, let me find. Okay, here's a good one. I don't know that we said this before. So the myth would be self care is always relaxing. So there's some people that might think it's foo foo, right? Like, oh, self care is taking a bath, or Cathy and Jay drinking their tea, or getting your nails done. It can be. I mean, we
Yes.
love the relaxing self care, the massage or whatever, but that's not what it's all about,
Yeah.
right?
It's not automatically that.
I mean, it can be exercising, which is not relaxing. It could be, this one even says about setting boundaries for yourself, doing some things uncomfortable so that you can take care of yourself. So it's not always relaxing. Although we do like the relaxing self care
Yeah.
stuff.
There, like I've talked about, Kathy. There is that category of self care where we're
Yeah.
pampering mind, body, and soul. There's the building, growing, and strengthening mind, body, and soul category, and then there's the pampering mind, body, and soul category. So it can be relaxing, but it's not limited to being relaxational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What you got?
So my next one is that self care is an occasional thing.
Okay. Look, we're finding some ones we didn't talk about before.
Yeah,
So
and
it's okay.
and like I said a minute ago, it
Okay.
for it to and just like with anything positive or anything growth related, it has to be consistent to be the most benefit to us.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just do it, and this will tie into one of the other myths here we're going to talk about in a minute. It can't just be when we think we have enough time to do it. We have to matter enough to ourselves to make the time to do it consistently. And that doesn't mean that it's always going to be the same time, the same day every week, because everybody's schedules don't allow for that. But there should be consistent intent to doing self care, not just every once in a blue moon or whenever we feel like it or whatever. Because that category where we're strengthening mind, body, soul, those are the things we need to really be doing consistently if we're going to build that part of us.
Agree. All right. Here's a good one. Self care is not for everybody. It's not
That's
everybody's cup of tea, which is false, 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 false. It is for everybody, and everybody should be doing it. That's my opinion.
I have that one too, but what I read, they did a different twist on it. They were coming at it from the angle of the myth, the misunderstood part of it is that self care is mainly for women. In other words,
Oh yeah,
going to the spa,
yeah,
or getting your nails done, or getting your hair done. That
right.
that self care is a primarily female thing. That's when they say that the
Mhm.
myth is that it's not for everybody. It is for everybody because we all
It
need
is
and
we need
should
to.
do.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're taking care of our well-being. We
yes,
all need to take care of our well-being. So it is for everybody because every single person needs to take care of their well-being unless they're a robot.
yeah. Again, I think a lot of this, Kathy, comes back to, and maybe we'll do another episode about this. Is that people maybe misunderstand what the definition of self care is, and look, we can go on Google right now, and there will be a few different variations, but they're all kind of generally the same thing. But maybe people's
Mhm.
idea of what the definition of self care is what leads them to these misunderstandings, and that's where the myths come in because they don't really know what it is, so they assign a definition in their head that's not real.
Who's on? You or me?
At me.
It's you.
Um, so okay, this next one for me, we might have talked about this before. That self care is costly,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
We did
that's
talk
not
about
that
that.
is absolutely not.
Expensive, costly.
Yeah, some of the. I think it depends on which activities you choose. There are a ton of self care things that don't literally do not cost a thing or almost nothing to do.
Yeah.
Um, you can go for a hike, or walk it. Go for a walk, or you can journal, or I mean,
Eating healthy, good
yeah,
sleep,
there's just so many things that cost little to nothing to do.
walking
So
outside.
there are some things that you know camping is self care for Kathy and her family, and
Yeah,
there's an expense with camping. There just is. So,
but not as
but
expensive as a hotel.
right, but you don't have to camp. You're just using that as an example to do self care. There's
Mhm.
so many things you can do that cost you little to nothing. Yeah, it's that self care is just a gigantic, big umbrella of things that help us to grow as a person or pamper the things we enjoy doing. And it's just some of them are going to cost some money. The majority, cost little to nothing. So I tend to think sometimes people use that as an excuse, just like one of the other ones we're going to talk about here in a minute. Yeah, but
Right.
it again, they don't have. It does not. That is absolutely false. It doesn't have to be costly at all.
Here's one. I don't know what I think about this one. Self care. The myth is self care is simple. So this article said self care is complex and multifaceted. And I was like, this is interesting because I do think self care can be simple. But this was
Yes.
saying that, I guess, kind of assuming that some people feel like there's a quick fix that's going to fix it. Just go take a bath. You're going to be fine. That it's not necessarily just that you really got to, but you could just
Yeah.
do that,
Yes.
and that is
Yep.
going to stop what you're doing and put you in a different frame of mind because there's a lot of self-care with you got to stop all the nonsense
Yep.
that's going on. But I guess this article is suggesting that if you're really going to take a holistic approach, you're going to look at what you need, right? It's going to take some time. It's not just that's easy, but like, what do you need? What is your financial situation? Like,
Yeah.
can you afford to have regular massage or camping trips or whatever? And what are your social contacts? And is it easy to be able to pull them in? You got to do some inventory of yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
You got to think about it a little. If it's going to be ongoing care for yourself, I would say you deserve it, right? You deserve to
Yeah.
put some thought into what your ongoing self-care would be.
I
So that's a
see
weird
a
one, right?
yeah. I've not heard that one, but it's interesting because just like a lot of things we've talked about so far, the what the myth is saying, it can be those things, but it's not limited to or has to be those things. Like you said, like for example, taking a nap can be self care. That's about as simple, literally,
Yeah.
physically. You're literally going to sleep. It does not get any simpler than that. So, can it be simple? Absolutely. And there are times when it should be. However, there's the other part of that coin where we should also be, especially to me, in the mind part of mind, body, soul, the mental health part. We should be self-reflecting and contemplating things and really be thinking about our life and where we were and where we want to go. That can get involved, especially if you're someone with anxiety or depression, or you have a diagnosed mental health condition. It can be very complex, all that's involved with that. So, but I think the complexity of really reflecting on yourself is a very, very important part of self-care, because that's how we grow. If we discover parts of ourselves, or we discover maybe where we've been going wrong up to that point in our life, and we kind of unravel that, and we're like, oh, I've been going about X, Y, and Z wrong all this time. Let me go to different. There's a lot of thought and time and effort and complexity involved with that, but it's very important. So I guess once again, the answer is self care can be simple as taking a nap, or simple as making a cup of hot tea. Sure, but there's you've got to really be diving into you to get some of the benefits that we all deserve. If that makes sense.
You did mention, I'm writing a couple things down. Hold on. I gotta take notes. You said something in that. Didn't you just say? I read something. I can't find it right now, but I did read something, and we talked about this maybe even last week. But it is not meant. Self care is not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatment. I
Yes,
mean, did you kind of were alluding to that, right?
yes,
I think it's worthy of saying that as well. I mean, obviously, hopefully, it's going to help people have less symptoms of whatever is affecting their mental health.
yes,
And I, on a rare occasion, have seen people that have totally used self care to deal with their mental health issues, but it takes a pretty disciplined person to do that.
yeah,
But it's a compliment. It's a compliment to mental health
yes.
problems.
It's part of
Yeah,
being well. Yeah,
we should be a part of everything,
and
really.
it's an important part.
Yeah,
Um, but yes, yeah, I had said that it's not a medicine for
yeah.
whatever.
Sometimes it's medicine for me.
It's rewarding. It's healthy. It's always positive. Um, and I think it should be a part of everyone's regiment to having better health, for sure. A part of the regiment, yes, an important part, but yes. Um,
Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent for a second. If you'll bear with me, I was
yep.
on a leadership training today, right? On a virtual Zoom leadership training, and I was so happy because the I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Uh, the facilitator
Squeeze
was
your
talking.
nostrils together. It works for
I
me
know,
every
right?
time.
I hit it at the top. Um, if the facilitators were talking about kind of barriers for being a leader, working in a we're in a chaotic world right now, and being a leader. But anyway, there was a whole slide about self-care, and I was glad to see that that's kind of going into the leadership field. That we as people, and we've talked about on the podcast, to lead anything. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah,
just lead a company. You can lead
a
uh,
family. Yep,
a family, a group in the community, a
classroom. Yep,
neighborhood, whatever. But you have to, and it's all the same stuff again: the sleeping, the eating, the movement, being aware. Like, you've got to do those things so that you can do your jobs. I don't know why I just got off on that tangent, but I was really happy to see the mindfulness in it. There was one guy that was even talking about Navy SEAL training, the importance of mindfulness, which
yeah,
is self care, in that Navy SEAL training.
yeah.
So, anyway, I just went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
Well, that's
Where,
okay.
where were we? Whose was it? Whose turn?
It's mine now.
Okay. Look, I'm just trying
Um,
to jump it every time. I'm trying to jump the line.
my next one we've definitely talked about before, and it's that um, self care is too time consuming, or I don't have the
Oh, yeah.
time to do self care.
Yeah,
Um,
yep.
Again, it's like a
No,
broken record. There are self care activities that take 5 or 10 minutes.
a
There are
hundred.
self care activities that might take you hours. Um, you go to the gym for an hour plus. That's a little time consuming. You go on a camping trip that takes your whole weekend up or whatever.
Breathing, deep breathing. That's a self care. That I mean, even if you did one set of box breathing where you're
Yeah.
breathing in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, letting it out for 4 seconds. I mean,
You go to the movies. That's a 2 or 3 hour chunk out of your day, and that's not insignificant. Um, but again, not all self care activities take long periods of time.
yeah.
But I think that it's in there. I think there are self care activities within, especially, well, actually, all three, mind, body, and soul, that we should be doing that take a little bit more time than the smaller
Hmm.
ones. I think there should be a balance. I think they all have their own importance and they all matter in their own way. Um, but again, they don't have to be these big chunks of time. And I have on the website, easternshoretalk.org, you can go on there and I have 70 or 80 different
If you need
levels of self
ideas,
care.
right?
Yep. And they have their assigned points based on how time consuming and involved they are. Some are 5 points and they go 5, 10, and 15 points. And obviously, if they're more involved and more time consuming, they're 15 points. But I think those are important too. And I get that everybody's schedule is different. And, you know, everybody gets different value out of different types of self care. There is no, you know, playbook as far as, okay, we all should be
Ah,
doing.
wait a minute. That goes into hold, pause. The myth is self care is a one size fits all approach. So
Nope.
you've just debunked that myth right there with what you just said. It's
Yep.
not. Everybody's different.
Yep. There's nothing that says you have to do a certain amount of 5 point ones and a certain amount of 10 point ones and a certain amount of
Yeah.
fifth. Now, I kind of use it as, okay, our weekly goal is good, better, best, 50, 75,
Mhm.
100. And you can get there. You could do two or three big ones and have your points. Now, to me, that kind of is out of whack because I think you want to be doing things throughout the week, whatever size they are, whatever you choose your things to be. Um, because we're not all fulfilled by the same things. We don't all enjoy the same types of things.
Well,
So
and this thing says self care is not a template. I just can't give you a
no,
template and say, here you go, Jay. If you do these 5 things, you're going to be fine. Because you might be like, I'm not doing that.
yeah,
Or I've got this one that I like better. That's the good. It's a buffet. Self care is a
yeah.
buffet, right?
They should. It should be all different because again, that one category, Kathy, of the things that pamper us, the things that we
Yeah.
enjoy, that we're just that category just by itself is going to be completely different
Wait,
with
that's the dessert part of the buffet, the pampering.
yes, yeah. That's
You need
kind
some
of
protein in the on the buffet.
yeah. You need a balanced diet. You don't
Yeah.
want to eat all just steak or all just ice cream.
Burn it.
You want to have a little bit of everything. As much as we all would like to have like that, it's not the best way to be.
Self care buffet. I like it. I just made that up.
And you can find a self care buffet right on the easternshoretalk.org website.
There's it. That's us. I did a quickie before we got on here. I went outside and I opened up the Adirondack chair that's been closed up for the winter and I just sat in the sun and closed
Yeah,
my eyes for like 10 minutes before I got on the podcast. And it felt really nice.
I kind of did that, not like that, but I met a client today. They were out from not from the area, and they were buying a house down in Bailey's
Mm.
Neck, right on the water.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got down there. They're buying this house, and we're going to put new flooring in it. And I got down there before anybody else, and I just kind of
Nice.
walked around their yard. I mean, they're literally like smack on the water, and I
Oh
just kind
my,
of
it
walked around.
was
They pulled
beautiful.
up, and I'm like, "Don't mind me. I'm just walking around your yard." And of course, they knew I was, so I
You're
wasn't
like,
like
good choice. You made a good choice with this purchase.
I wasn't creeping on their property or anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're like, "I don't blame you. I'm dry. I had my AC on in my car today.
Yeah.
It was crazy." But yeah, what's your next one, Kath?
This is an interesting one, I think. I've never seen. The myth is self care is an emergency reaction, a crisis response. gosh, I don't even know that I would have thought about that. Because, I mean, I think if I'm in a crisis, I'm probably not thinking about how to take care of myself. I'm just wondering about my crisis. But um, I guess the whole idea of it too, that it's much more than that. It's not just this temporary quick fix,
Yeah,
right? It's something that you've got to adopt and keep going.
I think I like that one because it is new, and it kind of reminds me of what Chris Moore was saying a couple weeks ago. Because I was asking him
Ah,
about what people are doing out there for self care, and he's like, "Well, everybody's still kind of in it right now. It's even though the fires are over, it's still happening in their minds and in their logistical days. So they haven't gotten to the point where like, okay, now I need to start going to my yoga classes again, or now I need to start meditating, whatever. So I think I know what they're trying to say. It's still there. It's not limited to that. Again, but I do think there is value, although we should be doing it consistently anyway. But there is, and again, depends on the timing and it depends on the impactful event, obviously, because there are
yeah,
different variations to degrees of that. But just using Chris's example with the fires,
yeah,
maybe 2 or 3 months from now, folks will be like, okay, you know, I'm just mentally worn out from the logistics of trying to get through the stuff. I need to go to a yoga class. There
yeah,
is value in that.
sure.
Again, it's not going to fix the fact that they don't have a house with a fire. That's what we were saying earlier. It's not a medicine. But it's part of getting our mind to a better place where we can then better handle the events that we're having to deal with at the time.
You know, this one and a couple others we've been talking about have made me think of two lines that people say to us, and I'm thinking, and I'll just say them. I'll say them. One is, how many times that maybe you're in a situation and somebody's like, "Oh, please take care of yourself," or "I hope you're taking care of yourself,"
Yeah,
right? And I never really thought about it till we're talking about this right now. With that's sort of like the beginnings of self care, but not saying what are you doing for self care, but people identifying, I hope you're taking care of yourself. And I don't even know that when people say that to me, I don't know that I ever thought about, well, what does that mean, taking care of myself? What does that mean?
yeah,
But what it means is take inventory. Are you getting outside and sitting in the sun? Are
yeah.
you doing
Are you
the things that
sleeping?
you
Yep,
like? Are you sleeping? Right? Which is all self care. So when somebody says, are you taking care of yourself? Jay, it's going to be, I'll say, I sure am.
yep,
I got my cup of tea right there waiting for me. But yeah, but that's sort of our culture. You taking care of yourself, or I hope you're taking. Please take care of yourself.
yeah.
Well, do it. If somebody asks you that, they're worried about you. Do it.
And I think self care, like we've said this a million times. It's kind of that Swiss Army knife tool in our life toolbox where it doesn't solve anything, it doesn't prevent anything, but if we're doing it all along consistently, it sure makes dealing with those life events a little bit less stressful. It doesn't fix them, it doesn't make it go away. We're still going to be impacted by those things. We're all going to have them. But it's just, even if it's just 10% better, I don't think there's any way to quantify how
Baby
much it
steps.
helps. Yeah. But if those impactful events are 10% less impactful because we've been taking care of ourselves all along, that can go a long way with getting through a day or getting through the week of being in the fires in LA or whatever events you might have gone through at the
Well,
time.
and sometimes we don't realize that things are happening. Like I want to do a whole episode on sleep, but I was watching something on TV today about cognitive decline and the dementias and things, and they were just talking. This doctor was talking about the importance of sleep and how it can affect that our cognitive ability as we're aging, and just like people with sleep apnea can have some fog. And they had this really great story about this woman that was literally forgetting things like how to use a can opener or something, a
Yeah,
simple task. And she couldn't have been, she was probably our age, Jay. And they found out that she had this certain kind of sleep apnea, and once she had something implanted in her chest to help tell the tongue at night to relax. It was the wildest story. But then everything reversed for her. Like she started to get the clear memory back, and it's like, good grief. She'd gone to all these doctors but didn't know until her daughter had to do a sleep study. And then I guess she must have said some of her symptoms to the doctor. And the doctor was, well, let's do a sleep study on you.
Yeah.
But anyway, this doctor was saying sleep, just the fact of sleep, taking care of yourself, self-care with sleep, monitoring, good sleep. If not, bad sleep can lead to a lot of physical problems,
Yeah.
to include, your diabetes and cholesterols and blood pressure. Sleep is so important and critical part of self-care.
Yeah. So my next one is that my next myth is that self care is optional.
Ah, I had that too. Yes.
And we talked about this
Nope.
within the past. We
We
briefly
did.
touched on this in the past couple weeks.
We said it's mandatory. We said it's not
Yes,
optional. It's
yes, yes,
mandatory.
and it is. If we want to be the best version of ourselves, it is mandatory. And I don't think there's anybody who, if they're really being honest, does not want to be the best version of themselves. We all
Well,
do.
and the reason why you say it's mandatory is like you have no choice. You have to sleep. You're not, you
Yeah,
know, you have to sleep. You have to eat. You really have to move. So it's mandatory.
yeah. It goes back to what we've talked about before, Kathy. I think because people don't understand what the real definition of self
Yeah.
care is. People are doing self care already. They just don't realize that it's defined. That because it's not intentional to them as self care, it doesn't occur to them that it's self care.
Well, and
Um,
I think people often link it, like you've already said, to money. Like maybe you're a busy single mom, and you're like, I don't have time, and I need to take care of my kids first. I can't take care of myself. I have to take care of them first. But it's the whole oxygen mask on the plane. You have got
yep,
to take it on yourself before you can help them.
yep,
So yeah, you got to take care of yourself
yeah.
so you can take care of other people.
What's your next one? I've got one. I've got the big one left. It's my only one.
Yeah, wait, I might have had one more before the obvious one. Did we kind of maybe said this, that self-care is anything is soothing. I mean, I guess we kind of said relaxing. We kind of said
Yeah,
that. We kind of
yeah.
touched on that, right?
It,
Like,
it, it
and
can it
people
can be,
think
but it's not limited to that. Yeah,
it's got to be like a piece of cake or bubble tea or the bath, that it's, warm bath, but it's not, it doesn't,
doesn't have
yeah,
to be.
soothing is good. It's like relaxing,
Yeah,
but we do need that self-regulation, self-care. And then I think we might be down to the big
down
one.
to the big bad wolf of self care myths.
If that sounds so like cliche.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun,
I
dun.
mean, see,
Do it.
okay.
Roll it.
If there's one lesson you're going to pick, we hope you pick up from this episode, just like the other 45,000 times we've mentioned in
Yeah.
our podcasts, self care is not selfish.
Selfish.
It's the exact opposite. Now, I can, to some degree, because the word self is in the phrase self care, that it sounds like we're ignoring all these other things in our life and we're only concentrating on us. When in fact, that is not what we're doing. We are taking care of ourselves so that all those other things in our life that we are doing, all the other hats that we're wearing, we are the best version of ourselves to be able to do those things. Nobody, look, I listen to a lot of self care based podcasts, read a lot of self care based articles. I'm sure Cathy does too. I have never once heard any of them ever say, okay, for self care, we want you to ignore your children. We want you to ignore your job. We don't want you to pay any attention to all that. We want you to just concentrate on yourself. Nobody ever says that. Not one single person I've ever heard has ever said that.
Let me read a couple of these things about self-care, the myth, self-care is selfish. I love this one article says self-care. So no, it's not selfish. We've already said that. The fact is, self-care is not about prioritizing oneself over others. It's about taking care of one's own physical, mental, emotional well-being so that you can be a better person for yourself and other people. So
Yes.
I love that. And that's basically what you
Yep.
just said. Here is another interesting take on self care is not selfish, is to learn to say no. Because the simple two-letter no word is important for time management, right? To allow time for you to regain your energies, to manage your energies, because we only have so much in the tank. So if you can say no, manage your energies and your time, then you're going to be more productive. And that's self-care. It's not being selfish.
Yeah.
It's managing time and energy.
It's
Yeah.
not taking care of yourself instead of the your priorities in your life, family and career and all that. It's doing self care in addition to,
Yeah.
which kind of goes back to the well, I don't have time, and
Yeah.
we've kind of talked about that before. You have more time than you think, and that doesn't mean that there are people. A lot of us aren't that we aren't busy because we are. But Kathy is about as busy of a person with family work as I know. But Kathy does a pretty good job, more often than not, of doing her self care stuff because she knows that if she's doing that, she's a better Kathy for as a mom and a wife. She's a
Oh,
better
nice.
Kathy as the CEO of China Marker and just in general. And I mean, you just kind of touched on it a minute ago. We can't pour from an empty cup. If we're it's just kind of like it just if you just break it down into physical health. If we are, let's just say we neglect our physical health and we are debilitated in some way. Well, now you can't. There's certain jobs you can't do. Maybe you can't work properly, or you can't work full time, and you can't do certain things with your children because you. It's kind of that theory, but in a
Yeah.
much bigger scale. I
Yeah.
just kind of use the physical debilitation part of it because it's a little bit. It's kind of the obvious one. I mean, but it goes the same for keeping your soul healthy, keeping your mind, happy and healthy. If we're lesser at those things, we're not giving the best version of ourselves to the people that matter in our lives and the things that matter, and we're doing them a disservice and doing ourselves a disservice, and you know we're we're living a lower standard of life than we deserve. That's kind of another way to put it too.
And maybe to put a smile on your face, you need self care, right? Uh, Whether it's you listen to a song in the car that just brings back a lot of good memories and brings a smile to your face, that's self care, you
Yep.
know?
What's the song? 3 minutes,
Hmm. That's self
and you're
care.
already in the car driving, so there's no effort in that. Doesn't cost you a thing.
Changes your mood. And there's some songs that really change my moods.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's music, there's TV shows, there's
Mhm.
movies. We talk about it
Food,
every week. There, you know,
people,
yeah,
objects.
yep,
Yeah. Good stuff. We did find some new ones, right? From
yep.
last time. And
And I
um,
just wonder, Kathy, if because we've talked about this before, how at least I think to the general public, the term self care is pretty new. Now, those in the mental health that work in the mental health field, it's probably been more common to them for longer period of time. But I think as that term becomes more commonplace and more people talk about it,
more research
um,
behind it.
yeah, there will be things that as doctors that research the brain to start discovering more things, and
Yeah.
um, the next new activity like streaming is what 5 or 10 years old, maybe something like that. Who would have thought streaming would be a self care thing? There will be something that comes along that's the next fad or next thing that will become a popular and wonderful and positive self care thing 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
whether it's like the Jetsons and you have a robot maid that answers your door for you or whatever it is.
Rosie. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit about what we've been watching lately. So what's been on the TV at the Castle?
So these kids they've been getting Marty into watching golf videos. So I don't know if there's these shows. There's like a series of golf
There's a series
people.
called Full Swing where
That's it. That's it.
they
They're
follow
watching.
yep, they follow the tour professionals and they interview. It's just kind of like behind the
Yeah.
scenes reality show of the PGA golfer tour. Yeah.
So I feel like we're all over the place. So like they're watching this full swing and then I'll come and watch some of that and then I ask a bunch of dumb questions which would equal me sitting by Jay in the movie theater and asking things and they're just like, if I told you who it was, you're not gonna know, that kind of thing. And then Dylan watched the whole. I don't know if I said this before on the podcast. He watched the whole series of Modern Family, and
Right. Yeah.
I didn't. We didn't watch all of that, but we would watch different pieces of it. And Marty and I were like, we're tearing up at the last one because their kids are all moving out and their families are moving. We're like, and then they had a camper. I'm like, is this us? So that was a really surprisingly funny, good show. We liked Modern Family. And then, we're oh gosh, American Idol. American Idol came on. We
Yep.
watched that right? Was it last night? Sunday night. I don't even know what night. Sunday night. Um so there's just so much going on, right? In the TV land.
So I'm trying to. I forgot the name of this.
So what you watched?
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of it. All right. So I went to the movies Friday and started to watch Mickey 17, which is kind
I
of a
saw
sci-fi
that.
Robert Pattinson, and it was okay. I must have been super tired. I fell asleep in the theater and woke myself up snoring. I thought I was having a massage. That's what I do at a massage. And it wasn't because I disliked the movie. It was okay. I just
Oh,
fell
you
asleep. I must have been
were
super
tired.
tired.
You were tuckered
So
out.
I probably watched half of it and fell asleep. And so last time I did, I'm like, I know I'm bothering people around me by snoring, so I'm going to leave. So I got up and left.
Do we need a CPAP machine for you in the movie theater?
I've never done.
Nose
I,
strip.
I've had times where I felt like nodding off, but I haven't full blown fallen asleep like I did
That's
that
funny.
last week.
I know
So,
I want to go back to the movies, but I haven't found anything. Like next week, I see Snow White's going to be there. I'm interested in Snow White.
yeah, I'm really that one looks good. I'm going to see Novocaine this week, which it looks pretty. Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son, is in it.
Mm.
That looks pretty good. There's one with Remy Malek called The Amateur. There's one with um, Working Man with Jason Statham, which is a typical Jason Statham, you know, shoot 'em up, having fights
Hmm.
kind of movie. Um, yeah, so it's starting to crank back up as far as movies at the theater. But I watched. Have you ever heard of um, a therapist who got in trouble a few years back? Her name was Jodie Hildebrandt.
That name sounds familiar.
Okay, so it was on Hulu, and the documentary is called "Devil in the Family:
Hmm.
The Fall of Ruby Frankie." Because Ruby Frankie was a huge turned into a huge YouTube person. She had millions of followers, and at first she was just documenting her family. Um, Lived in Utah. They were Mormon. Seems to be a lot of documentaries I watch are surrounding that whole Mormon,
Hmm.
some of the stuff around the Mormon church. But anyway, um, so she gets involved with this in this class with this therapist named Jodie Hildebrandt, and this woman was like Charles Manson.
Oh wow.
So she was really dangerous because she was like a legit therapist, and she was you know doing these online classes and stuff, and really kind of brainwashing people. And she brainwashed this housewife, and ended up having all kind of child abuse, and
Gosh.
the husband was kicked out
True
of the house.
story, eh?
A true story, and it was just a few years ago.
Hmm.
But it's either 2 or 3 episodes, and it's called. She ends up moving in the house with this family. The wife kicks the husband out, says, "We're still married, but
Wow.
you can't live here. You can't have any contact." The oldest son and oldest daughter were kicked out
Hmm.
because the therapist says. But basically, what it was is they were all people that were going to be in her way to controlling the housewife. So the
Hmm.
therapist manipulated the housewife into kicking the people that would be in her way out.
Wow.
And turns out that then there were the four younger children. One of the younger they they move into the therapist's house in another part of
Mhm.
Utah, and one of the younger kids escapes. They had tied this kid up with duct tape and handcuffed him, and he
Yeah.
somehow escapes and runs to the neighbors and gets the police involved, and that's how it's all kind of unravels. And
Wait,
now the woman's
this
in
is not
jail,
one
but
you watch before you go to sleep.
no, but I was like, man, ugh. Well,
Gives therapist a bad name.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, man, I wonder if, because that name kind of rung a bell. The
Yeah.
the housewife's name didn't ring a bell at all, but the
Mm-mm.
therapist's name did, which was kind of interesting. It's called Devil in the Family: The Fall of Ruby Frankie. It's on Hulu. It's brand new. It just
What did you think of Idol? Did you like
um,
Idol this week?
I liked it.
I'm
I
missing Katie a little. Hey.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe it's just because Carrie doesn't have that like very outgoing and kind of charming personality that Katie does. You know what I mean?
Katie was she was silly. It
Yeah,
was
she's
funny. It was
playful.
entertaining.
That's not. Now, I will say, Carrie got a little silly when she got sang with the rock guy, and knew all the words.
I know that was crazy, right? How
Um,
about when she had that little boy? Oh my gosh, that
and
was
he
so
fell
cute.
asleep.
And then Luke was rubbing his back and his temple. I'm like, what? First of all, which kid is going to do that with all these strangers? And that kid was about ready to pass out. He
He
was
was
sitting
just
there.
used to being sung to go to sleep, and that's what he did. His mom makes him go to
But
sleep that
what
way.
a cool. That's going to be a great story for that child one day.
Oh yeah, yeah. Luke Bryant made me fall asleep by rubbing my temples.
Yeah, and then he hugged it, and then he hugged him. I was like, I can't take it. This is gonna make me cry. It was so sweet. But I love that show, so I can't wait to see what happens there.
And then the girl who's was either her mother or her grandmother passed, and she'd always talked about, oh, I want to go on Idol, but and she was always like terrified.
Wait, was that the one with the cowboy hat? No.
Yeah, the one
Yeah,
that you
that's where
missed.
I dozed off.
Well, she walks in and she tells Ryan, she's like, "I'm going to put my sunglasses on because
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
if I can't see, it will make it less scary." So then she gets in there and she introduces herself and says, "Well, I'm going to turn around if you don't mind." And she literally turns her back to the judges, puts her sunglasses on, closes her eyes,
Goodness.
and sings. Well, little does she know, while she's singing, they get up and they sneak around in front of her. She
There,
doesn't even know
as you
because
said,
her eyes are shut still. She's still singing, and she had like times where she sounded really good and times where she didn't sound because she's inexperienced. How she hasn't been trained.
yeah.
So she gets done and she opens her eyes and they're standing 3 feet from her the
Oh
whole
my
time.
gosh, I
And of
missed
course she's
that.
like, and they tell her they're like on the fence, and Carrie's like, look, you can't be turning your back. You got to get rid of the sunglasses. And she's like, I'm going to be honest with you. You're either going to crash and burn because it's going to be too much for you, or you're going to blossom like Loretta Lynn's granddaughter did
Oh
last year.
yeah.
Now this girl was way, way more terrified than Loretta Lynn's daughter ever was. Um, so
Did they pick her?
yeah, they let her through.
They let a
And
couple through where I was like, y'all not making it.
those are my favorite ones. I'm very nervous for her moving forward
Yeah.
because I agree with Carrie. She might just fall apart and not be able. She might just walk off stage or whatever. But there
Yeah.
are those kids every year that are just terrified
Yeah.
and have like no confidence, and all of a sudden, something clicks in them, and the light bulb goes on, and you can watch them grow right before your eyes. That's my favorite part. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and of course, the voice was last night. This my the the battle rounds is my favorite part. My favorite part
I was watching it too.
because it's so cool how two people who don't know each other, they've never sung together, can be
Wait, the guy I liked, he didn't get picked, right? Remember, I texted you, and there's a guy and a girl singing, and you thought that Kelsey was gonna steal him if he didn't get picked.
right.
I don't. Did he not get
Yeah,
picked?
it was a kind of the country sounding guy and a
Yeah.
girl, and um, yeah, because I thought because they will do that. They know that somebody else is going to steal them, so they'll pick the other one, knowing well they're going to get stolen anyway. especially if they've already used their own save, because they get one save and one steal.
Oh
They can
yeah.
save one of their own or steal somebody else's.
Hmm.
So there's some strategy there. Um, there was some surprises, but I like it. Like I was saying, is these two people who don't know each other at all can come together and be coached up and sound incredible singing a song.
Oh, wait, I forgot because I must have been having a conversation with a kid in the middle of this. That Wicked was Cynthia Erivo. Is that how do you say her
She was
last name?
one of the mentors.
Yeah. So was last night the first time she was on?
Yep.
I was like, man, you guys dipped into the big pool to get that one. I
Yeah.
mean, I would be intimidated to see her there.
I was a little. I was like, Kate Hudson,
Oh yeah, yeah,
because she does sing. She's actually like doing music now, and
yeah. But her
she
compared to, I mean, you've got
oh yeah.
Wicked compared to
You've got
Goldie Hawn
Cynthia
Stone.
Erivo, and you've got Little Big Town.
What will they be there for all of them then? Like
Uh,
for all
For
episodes?
the battle rounds for that judge, like
Okay.
because Kelsey, Little Big Town is Kelsey's mentor for the battle rounds. Now the other girl
Who was
that
she with? Cynthia was with who? John?
Michael Bublé.
Oh, okay. Man, he pulled
John had
that's a big event.
the girl that John had. I had no
Oh
idea
yeah,
who it was.
I didn't know her either. It was like Coco or something.
Lolo Coco Jones.
I didn't know her.
I don't know her either. I even looked her up after the show and to
Uh,
see if maybe I knew a song, just didn't know it was her. I
mhm.
had no idea. That's
Shoot.
okay. I don't.
I mean,
But
you brought out Wicked. I mean, he's trying to win.
oh yeah, and you know what? It's funny. I gotta say, and who would have ever known? Because look, Ariana Grande can sing. I mean, she can freaking sing.
Yeah,
I think Cynthia Review can sing better.
I know, I know.
There's just something about her that just.
She's really good, and
I
she's
mean,
just
and that's not
so
her. That's
likable.
not. She's like people more think of her as an actress than they do a singer, but she can. I mean, she can flat out go,
She can belt it out. She got these long wicked nails and
and
great
she's teeny tiny.
outfits.
Her and Ariana are both they're the teeny tiniest people, and
They
yet
are.
this big thing comes out of this teeny tiny person.
I know, right? Cool. Good stuff. Lots of good stuff.
Yeah, they got more of the battle rounds left, and it's I just like that's always when the best moments happen because you're like because they especially if they pick the right song and
Hmm.
people just yeah it's always like goosebump moments in the battles to me. But
Yeah.
all right, guys, that's it for this week. But next week is a huge deal for us because it is our 1 year anniversary
We're one.
special show for the Eastern Shore Talk podcast. It's such a big deal. We're going to have cameos from several of our guests that we had on in our first year, so that'll be cool. And we are continuing to hammer out the details for the Eastern Shore Self Care Expo. That's the official name, coming hopefully in September. So keep your ears open for that. And we are glad you joined us, and we will catch you next time. Take care, guys.
Bye.